Oh my God, the universe is collapsing. Imagine that. Somebody who's making $12 an hour, now like the rest of us, faces an unprecedented economic crisis with the $600 on top of their regular unemployment check, might be making a few bucks more for 4 months. Oh my word!
So that was a very fiery Senator Bernie Sanders going after Republicans in his usual way, which I enjoy. I enjoy the snark, and I do enjoy the yelling and the finger wagging. I do. You know why? It's because they actually freaking deserve it. So now this was during the negotiations, $4.5 trillion bailout for corporations. So now, look, it was a bad bill. I reported this as a $500 billion fund. In reality, what I didn't know at the time is that they could leverage that $500 billion tenfold with the Federal Reserve. And so it turns a $500 billion bailout into a $4.5 trillion bailout, all under the control of Steven Mnuchin with an IG, an inspector general, as their oversight. Oh, wow. Ooh. I know, right? So look, the bill was terrible, and it's massively weighted towards gigantic corporations. And what little was in there for workers nearly got shut down by 4 very wealthy Republicans, including Tim Scott. So now this is GOP Senator Lindsey Graham, of course, Rick Scott, Tim Scott, and Ben Sasse. Well, I think it's Ben Sass, but I like to call him Ben Sasse. And so they were concerned, and it's fake concern, but they said that unemployment benefits in this bill that were negotiated, that were put into the bill by Senator Bernie Sanders himself, were too generous. And they would make people lazy. Oh, lazy. Now, the 4 senators proposed adding an amendment that would limit unemployment benefits to 100% of a worker's salary. Graham said he believed that very few people would choose to work over unemployment benefits that provided them moderately more money. So understand, we're in the middle of a crisis, right? So what we want to do is we want to pay people to stay home. I know that is 100% against everything the Republican Party stands for. Oh my God. No, you're going to pay people to stay home? Yes. In this case, you do want people to stay home. You want them to stay home so that you can flatten the curve, and so we can get through with this sooner and then get back to work. And the sooner we do that and practice social or physical distancing, right, which is the same thing, but a lot of people have problems with the word social distancing because, well, we're not distancing ourselves socially. We're just doing a physical distance, right? Okay, fair enough, whatever you want to call it, right? We need to do that. We need to make sure that as few people go to work as possible, so that they don't spread this thing around and get more people sick. And that way, that virus will eventually subside and will be gone, right? What we're risking by sending people back to work too soon is reinfection and respreading it to people and the possibility of having millions die as a result. The Republican Party is like, no, we're okay with that result. Whatever helps the markets. In fact, the only thing that made them actually consider doing a partial shutdown or a shutdown of limited scope, right, or limited time frame, is the fact that the markets were reacting very poorly to the spread of this thing anyway. And so they're like, no, we don't want people to stay home. No, we want people to go back to work, endanger themselves, because I want the magical line to go up. And that line, of course, being the stock market. Stonks. Okay, anyway. So now, here's the thing. I think the people that are currently have to work, that are essential workers, they should be getting paid more. I mean, look, at the very least, grocery workers should be getting $15 an hour. At the very least, at least in my area, right? Nurses in hospital, people that work in the hospitals, they should be getting a lot more than they do right now. You can call it hazard pay. You can call it whatever you want, right? I call it doing the very least that we can for these workers that are risking their lives to save ours and to protect us. And that's another part of staying home is we make sure not to overload our currently overloaded healthcare system. Right now in New York, they are overloaded. They don't have enough supplies. They don't have enough beds, and we haven't even hit peak yet. And so I keep saying it's going to get worse before it gets better, and it hasn't even gotten worse yet. So we haven't hit the peak. Over the next week or so, it's going to get even more disastrous. That's why we have to stay home. That's why we've got to do this. And not to mention the massive economic harm that comes from not flattening that curve. Pharmacists too, absolutely. That's somebody from the chat. We do this show together. Okay, so now, in response, of course, to these 4 rich senators who hate poor people, and by the way, I think it was somebody stepping in to defend Tim Scott here by saying, "Oh, if you don't like Tim Scott, if you're critical of him, it's because you're jealous that he's got such a good portfolio, that he's worth $244 million." Whatever, get off it. You guys are ghouls, terrible, horrible people. Okay, anyway, so now Bernie Sanders, of course, he's like, you're gonna hold up this legislation to try to strip out stuff to help the little guy? Oh no, I'm gonna hold it up then. If you want to hold it up for this, I'm gonna hold it up for your $4.5 trillion bailout. Yeah, so let's play this, right? He demanded stronger conditions in the bill's corporate welfare fund if the Republican senators refused to drop their objections to the unemployment provisions. So understand, Bernie was using whatever leverage he had. And it wasn't much. Let's be fair about that. It's kind of a lose-lose situation, right? You block this bill because it's corporate welfare. You're not going to see that on the news. It's not going to be reported that way. And every American citizen is going to think, Bernie blocked my $1,200. So understand that, optics-wise, it's a gamble, right, to hold this up, even though we know it's corporate welfare. Nonetheless, he used whatever leverage and took a risk, and guess what? He ended up winning that. He won that fight. And so it gave some relief to workers. Again, we all agree that it's not enough. Bernie Sanders agrees that it's not enough. But right now, whatever help he can get to the workers is his primary focus. And so that's why he let it go. That's why he let it go. And that's why he said, okay, look, my provision's in there. We're going to get unemployment benefits plus an extra $600. Great. Best we can do right now. But he did that. And by the way, this bill, the unemployment provisions also include workers that are typically not involved with unemployment, normally are not eligible for unemployment. So that helps. So at the end of the day, though, the point is he got a concession by fighting and being strong. That's how you do that. And it turns out, of course, the Senate easily defeated the Sassy Amendment and passed it by a vote of 96-0. So look, Trump's out there saying 96-0, yeah. That's because he got a giant corporate bailout. Of course, right? And again, we all know that this bill is trash, but at least it's got something for working people instead of not, which of course it could have easily gone the other way and not helped out working people. So look, I know it's not a lot, but Bernie Sanders, here's the thing. Here's something that corporate, centrist Democrats always say, oh, Bernie, he can't get anything done. He can't work with other people. He can't get anything into these bills. What has he ever done? Well, he just did this. He just made sure that people got their unemployment benefits. Whereas the Republicans weren't going to let you get a thing at all, because Republicans hate regular people and they hate unemployment benefits and they hate helping regular workers. They want regular people to go back to work and get sick and die. And so, look, what he does is that, and Bernie Sanders exists in a system that is hostile to him, that is hostile to us progressives. And so we've kind of got to understand that you do kind of have to work within that and do the best that you can. And that's what Bernie Sanders has been doing his entire career. So that's kind of how he's legislated. That's why he's not radical. That's why he is the centrist candidate, the real centrist candidate. And that's why he's the real, candidate that we know can get things actually done. Yes, he is the amendment king, and he is well known as being an effective legislator. In fact, you have Robert Reich, the former, Clinton's former labor secretary, arguing that Bernie Sanders, he doesn't put his name on bills. He doesn't do this thing, where a lot of senators and elected officials do is, I'm going to try to put my name on it so I can increase my clout. So I can go back and say, look at that great record. No, Bernie Sanders doesn't do that. He's just like, how am I going to get the best results for the working people? Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.